And for more on that incident at Haneda Airport, Desmond Ross, Managing Director of Pegasus Aviation Advisors, joins us live from Ireland. Desmond, thank you so much for joining us. We know that authorities are still investigating the cause of that collision, but based on the footage that you have seen of the incident, what do you think could have happened? How is it possible that the two planes came into contact?
Yes, it's the question on everyone's lips at the moment. I'm not personally familiar with Haneda Airport, but it's got parallel runways. And I'm also not 100% certain about the weather conditions at the time, but we have to ask the question of what the weather was like and the visibility in particular. Looking at the videos, it looks quite good, quite reasonable. Therefore, an aircraft that's approaching to land at the airport should have seen any obstruction on the runway in front of him. And he would have had the opportunity, one would expect, to go around, so avoiding the obstacle on the runway. Air traffic control is a major consideration in all of this. What we will find out in due course is exactly what was said by the air traffic controller to the pilot of both aircraft. Under normal circumstances, the Coast Guard aircraft would have been told to hold short of the runway. That is, not to enter the runway because there is an aircraft on final approach. So how it is that the captain of the Coast Guard aircraft actually entered the runway is a really big question at the beginning. Did he misunderstand an instruction from the air traffic controller? Or was he so engrossed in his mission, perhaps, that he misunderstood it, didn't clearly understand that he should not enter the runway? The aircraft on final would have received a clearance to land from the air traffic controller. Otherwise, he would have simply gone around. He would not have continued to land. He obviously did that. He hit the aircraft that was on the ground. Therein lies the entire conundrum. How is that possible, just as you said? Under normal circumstances, it should not occur, obviously. It very rarely does occur, but it's not the first time. It has happened before, regrettably. It really is a mystery at this moment in time. But the essential point is that the aircraft landing should not have landed if he saw an obstacle in front of him. He should have applied power and gone around. The second and most important part is that the Coast Guard aircraft should not have entered the runway if he knew that an aircraft was approaching to land, because he would know that he was placing himself in harm's way as an obstacle to the landing aircraft. So the air traffic controller has a very important role in all of this, and he should have seen what was happening and perhaps been able to stop the Coast Guard aircraft from moving, or should have told the Japan Airlines aircraft to go around. These are really big questions, which will become very clear very quickly from the recordings, the voice recordings, and on the tapes, both in the control tower and in the aircraft flight data recorder. So from that point, we'll start to understand what has gone wrong. Some airports, well, many airports now, have got auto-land facilities. The aircraft itself has to be properly equipped. The flight management system on the aircraft can be set up to land in blind conditions, heavy fog, heavy conditions that would normally, or in previous times, required the aircraft to divert to another airport. I'm not 100% certain whether Haneda Airport has that, but I would expect that it does, and that the aircraft could have been on an auto-land system. But this would still not excuse, running into an aircraft that was already on the runway.
Lots of possible scenarios.
Yes, lots of possible
scenarios, as you say. The plane was engulfed in flames, as we've seen from lots of video of the incident. But all passengers and crew on board that JAL flight were able to evacuate safely. How was everyone able to disembark so quickly?
Well, there is a requirement even with the large A380s, which might be carrying 400 passengers or more even, you have to be able to evacuate an aircraft under stress in less than 90 seconds. That's a requirement of certification. So the aircraft is designed for rapid exit in the case of an emergency. What I saw on the video surprised me quite a lot, that there were quite a number of passengers trying to run down the slides. That is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to jump and slide down. That's why they're called a slide. You slide down them, you don't run down. So that in itself would have been a problem and could have caused a major traffic jam, as it were, where people couldn't actually get down the slides. But the design of the aircraft is such that the slides automatically open when the doors are open. The flight attendants on the aircraft have done a marvelous job in opening the doors and actually mustering the passengers to get them to the doors. It's only from that moment that it got a little confused with people trying to run down the slides instead of sliding down them. But it is truly almost remarkable that they were able to achieve that without any injuries, without any major injuries, you could say. I think there's about 17 people with minor injuries, but it's actually really a test of the A350, because I think we'll find that this is the first time there's been any sort of a major incident with the A350 requiring evacuation. I don't know of any others. That it was able to be achieved under very difficult circumstances. And I think it's a testament to the actual design of the emergency system on the aircraft. I have to say that in watching the video, I was amazed at how quickly the fire just overcame the aircraft. The modern materials on the aircraft would have assisted in saving those passengers. Earlier aircraft, going back quite a few years, had quite often flammable materials in seats and stuff like that. Well, that should all have gone now. It has gone. And it appears from even the aftermath photographs that parts of the aircraft are still intact, although charred. It's actually a fact from so many accidents that passengers often survive the crash and then die through smoke inhalation and the after effects, the burning of materials on the aircraft. So there's been a lot of work done over the years in removing any materials that can cause toxic fumes. And clearly they've done a good job in this case as well.
We understand that Airbus will be sending experts to help Japanese investigators to figure out what exactly happened. What aspects will they be looking into? The air traffic controllers, pilot error? What are the possibilities?
There'll be several teams of people working on this. There'll be the Airbus people themselves, and they'll be looking primarily at the aircraft features and the aspects that may have contributed, if possible, if in any way, to the accident. There will be teams of governmental inspectors from the Japanese civil aviation authorities, and they will all be looking in different areas at the same time. So you've got technical aspects that Airbus will be looking at. They will obviously be interested also in all the air traffic control data and pilots' information as well. The two recorders on the aircraft are going to be vital to all of this. The cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder will both be essential parts of this investigation, and they will be easily recovered from an accident like this. Sometimes you're unable to recover those recorders if, in the case of going back a bit to, say, aircraft like MH370, if the aircraft's not found, then the data recorders are not found. But in this case, they'll be there on the runway amongst the charred wreckage, and they will be serviceable. They're built to withstand something like this. So they'll be able to hear every word that was said by the pilots prior to and during the accident, every word that's said by the air traffic controllers, and the flight data recorder will record all of the parameters of the aircraft, and the Airbus engineers and investigators will be looking very closely at all of that data from the recorder. So the information will be there, and we will get a clear understanding of what has happened, but understand also that it won't only be that aircraft that they'll be looking at. The Coast Guard aircraft will also have to be examined very carefully, and there will be a recorder on that aircraft. And we'll have to know what was said between the air traffic controller and the Coast Guard pilot to understand why he ended up entering that runway.
Thank you so much for your insights, Desmond. That was Desmond Ross, Managing Director of Pegasus Aviation Advisors.